like to call to order the regular meeting of the Zionsville Redevelopment Commission for Monday, November 22nd, 2021 at 6:37 p.m. I'd like to recognize the RDC members that are present today. We have Kent Ezra live here at Town Hall, and we have Colleen Hiddle via Zoom. Are there any other RDC members via Zoom? Okay, thank you. Recognition of the attendees who would request to be noted. Is there anyone online that would like to be noted that you can tell? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, moving on. We'd like the TIF Area Memorandum reports. Wayne, or will that be Owen?
Certainly, I will take care of that. Certainly in front of you and in the packet is a list of projects that are occurring in various TIF districts. Certainly, I would say there's no real updates for you. We did talk a little bit about Blackacre of late, and certainly we believe that project will be seeking a plumbing inspection here soon related to an updated permit that they have filed for with the department to keep that project moving. Certainly other projects that you see listed, Cohatch, for example. We did a walkthrough as a hard hat walkthrough with that project about 3 weeks ago with the mayor and deputy mayor. Certainly the project's coming along very well. Certainly in Creekside, you can see that Ray Hall continues to move forward, and circling back just a touch, Tri-Phase, their building on Bennett Parkway was approved last week at the Plan Commission to provide connectivity from ROL to Bennett Parkway. This is a concept that we've talked about previously on several occasions. Not various methodologies of accomplishing that have been discussed. Certainly, this now landing final discussions, if you will, on that particular location. Certainly, driving past Appaloosa at 300 South and US 421, see the various projects that are going forward there with the vertical commercial component. Certainly, the Plan Commission recently discussed the residential component with some townhomes. I believe that's 119 units by Pulte. Certainly, we'll be discussing soon or more conversations about Sila Capital, the 700 East TIF, and the other buildings that are contemplated by the developer. You recall this conversation, this discussion from last month. There's certainly other TIFs listed there, Holiday Farms and Oak Street, both experiencing projects. Happy to answer any questions about those above. Certainly Creekside is continuing marketing, and park and discussions are listed later on in the agenda. And then in other business, would like to bring up an unplanned expense by the Community Development Corporation related to irrigation.
Sure, thank you, Wayne, for that report. Any questions for Wayne?
Just real quick, do we know if they're planning to ask for the residential portion of the Appaloosa Crossing project to be in the TIF district or TIF?
It is already within the EDA. The bond issuance and the other discussions that have happened previously did not contemplate a residential component, nor is the TIF district set up to embrace that specific topic.
Okay. Thanks. Question. Okay. Hearing none, moving on. Under old business, approval and adoption of the minutes from the October 25, 2021 regular meeting. The minutes, the memorandum has been included in your packet.
I'll move that we approve the October 25th, 2021 regular meeting minutes.
Okay, we have a motion. I'll second. The motion and second. Any questions? Is Colleen live?
Colleen is.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Sanjay?
We'll need to secure votes from Colleen.
Can you guys not hear me?
I hear you, Colleen.
Thank you, Jacqueline. I don't think they can hear us.
Oh. So Jacqueline is here too.
Oh, excellent.
Can you let, yeah.
We can hear you.
I
now.
can hear you.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay, good.
Wonderful. Very good. So voting on the minutes, starting with Ms. Hiddle,
Yes,
Ms. Spillane,
Yes,
Mr. Ezra,
Yes.
Mr. Patel.
Yes, motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is Creekside Corporate Park Lot 1, term sheet with Bradley Companies. Have we had any changes on that?
No, the conversation, the project continues to move through due diligence and review of the town's fee structure related to impact fees and building permit fees. Most recently, we shared what the road impact fee calculation, and we look forward to continued conversations with that group. We have no specific update for you this evening.
Great. And for Lot 2, letter of intent from Halicar LLC.
Yes, last evening, we did have a telephone conversation on Friday with that team, and certainly learned late on Sunday night that they are considering no longer pursuing the site in Creekside due to just various obligations and interests in a little bit more flexibility than what the project offers there in Creekside. That certainly support their decision, but we'll continue to have conversations with them.
Great, thank you. And then the 2022 budget, which was, it's included in your packet.
Yes, we put the budget as old business, but certainly if you wish to run through the annual taxing unit presentation, since the budget is embedded as a part of that project, you could certainly effort, you could certainly talk about it at that time. But we did, again, put it as a standalone item because it was originally old business.
Sure. I have no questions regarding the budget. Okay. Well, we can move on to the annual taxing unit presentation.
Well, good evening, Commissioners. Becca Zakowski with Crow. Today, I'm here to present you the annual tax increment finance presentation. We will first go over the agenda. First, we'll go over the purpose of the presentation. We'll go over an overview of the existing allocation areas. Wayne will touch on the budget and future projects, and then we'll go back and discuss the impact to the overlapping taxing units. And then Wayne will hit some highlights in the allocation areas. So jump into the purpose of the presentation. The purpose of the presentation is really to meet the requirements of Indiana Code. Annually, you're required to present on the Redevelopment Commission's budget for tax increment finance revenues, long-term plans for the allocation areas, and the impact to the overlapping units within those allocation areas. So today we're going to present and meet those requirements. First, I wanted to touch on an overview of the allocation areas. Just to give an overview of what you have are your existing allocation areas. Wayne will touch on the budget and future projects. So here are your existing allocation areas. The top row are the allocation areas. The second row, I won't read all these dates, but this is when you passed a declaratory resolution to set up the allocation area. Obviously, first was the Zionsville EDA. That's the most, that's the allocation area with most history. And then most recently, the Holiday Farms allocation area. The third row down is the base date. And that is when the base date sets the assessed value that will still flow to the overlapping taxing units as of that date, and then any increment over that will flow to the TIF fund. The expiration date is really, most of these are set by the issuance of a debt obligation. As you'll see, the Oak Street allocation area, the 334-700 and Holiday Farms don't currently have an expiration date because they don't have any debt payable from those TIF revenues. So once you issue a bond or debt obligation, you'll see that the clock for those allocation areas will start, and that is 25 years from the issuance date.
If I could pause you for a second.
Yep.
Anyone from the RDC have questions for Becky in regards to our TIF districts, timeline, et cetera?
Nope.
Is the one that was listed on 146, is that Appaloosa?
Yes.
Thank you.
The next few slides go over the historical net assessed value for the allocation areas. Kind of as a refresher, the allocation area is established, and as of the base assessment date, all of the assessed value in that area, as of the base assessment date, plus the property assessed as residential, generates property taxes for the various tax units located in that area, while subsequent increases in the assessed value due to new investment will temporarily be captured instead of set aside in the TIF allocation fund. So the graphs here show the base assessed value in blue and the incremental AV in the gold yellow color. Like I mentioned, the Zionsville EDA is the most, or is the longest outstanding TIF and has kind of the most history. The 146th Street and Holiday Farms allocation areas have not generated incremental AV to date, but overall, the other allocation areas show a positive trend, and that's due to new investment in those allocation areas. This slide goes over TIF revenue collections over the last 5 years. Approximately 2.3 million will be collected in the allocation areas in 2021. About 2.2 in TIF revenues was collected in 2020. So you'll see an increase for pay 21. The next few slides go over debt that has a pledge of TIF revenues. A majority of these are payable from the original Zionsville allocation area. The sewage works bonds that were issued in 2010 funded some sewage works improvements. Those are funded by TIF revenues of the Zionsville EDA. The 2012 lease rental bonds funded improvements at Bennett Parkway. Those have less than 4 years, until they mature. The 2016 bonds funded improvements at Creekside Corporate Park. The town hall note has a portion of the Oak Street TIF revenues pay that payment. The 2017 bonds were issued for the Metro FiberNet project. That's personal property TIF. And that's a developer purchase bond that was issued in 2017. The 2017 refunding bonds refunded the 2008 bonds, and those were originally issued for construction of 106th Street. And then lastly, the Appaloosa Crossing project that were issued, those bonds were issued earlier this year and funded improvements in the 146th Street EDA. And again, those were developer purchase bonds. And I think from here, I'll hand it over to Wayne to discuss the budget and long-term plans for the allocation areas.
Certainly, thank you. And first and foremost, I do not want to overlook Tammy Havard, who is online. She is the town's CFO, but she also statutorily serves as the Redevelopment Commission's treasurer. So certainly, Tammy, if she has any particular items to add, certainly we'll look to include those. But I can run through what's on the screen, which is your 2022 budget for the Redevelopment Commission. And this is a budget that's primarily based upon the spend related to debt and related to specific obligations, as well as potential projects. Certainly, as outlined in the presentation previously, there's a number of debt-related processes and bond issuances that need to be addressed by your budget. Certainly, that's outlined here with the projects that are identified, as well as the spend. Certainly, you know, the one item that you do see contractual services related to specific items, as well as the legal fees related to attorneys, consultants, financial advisors that you use through the year. Certainly your economic development incentive line items that either are identified as community development corporation and or scheduled payments. Those are items. The 250,000 is your very standard line item that you see year over year, which is the line item that supports community development corporations' efforts related to economic development projects. The scheduled payment is a payment that's due to Group 1001 based upon the 2015 sale to Lids. At that time, this agreement was assigned to Group 1001 back when they acquired the property in 2019. You may recall that there's a $400,000 obligation from that sale, and this is just working through that calendared March payment dates that will end in 2023, I believe. You see the line item for the schools, that's based upon the Creekside's bonding and the support that the school provided in that initial transaction. Certainly the other expenses are identified, and I'm happy to speak to anything specifically, and certainly if Tammy has any comments as well, we can look to incorporate those.
I have a quick question, Wayne.
Right.
This is just the budget that relates to the TIFs, right? Not for the whole RDC.
Well, your dollars are derived from tax increment financing, and so each line item is spelled out and then cross-referenced with each district that is the revenues. And then the bond issuances, for example, are being paid. So to your question, is this the entire TIF and the entire EDA? I believe that the answer to that is yes, but Crow, is there anything else to add?
Yeah, I would say this is your complete budget. Your revenues are your TIF revenues, and you make debt service payments and other payments like contractual fees and things like that, that Wayne highlighted.
And are the prior year's budgets, as provided every year per that statute? Is that something that's a matter of public record or something that we could look at in, subsequent meetings? Just for the purposes of comparison?
Oh, certainly. And for example, we could pull up last year's presentation and it would contain this same slide, just with a different year.
Can you, from a high level, make any, I think maybe I was there for last year's, but I'm just trying to think back to, prior to, when this group was together. Is there anything notable from a delta, if you will, from these budgets over the years?
Year over year, I think what we're going to be seeing, definitely will be an escalation in bond payments due to just the maturity. Something that we'll be talking about or want to talk about is refinancing on some of the bonds, if that's indeed an option, at least on Creekside. That bond accelerates pretty rapidly here in a few years. But year over year, the budget is fairly comparable. The consulting fees, legal fees have gone up a little bit. Engineering, we've consolidated that into one line item. We do anticipate that line item supporting additional projects, such as the Zionsville Gateway area, which is a project that's slated for the town council's discussion here on December 6th. But generally, the budget that you're seeing is very comparable to one that you've seen over the last 2 to 3 years.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. Appreciate
Sure.
it. That's the end of my questions.
I will just this is Tammy Havard. I will just make one note that the Redevelopment Commission is reviewing this budget and making the recommendations, but the town council is going to actually appropriate the funding. So these will go before council for approval and appropriation in the December meetings.
Great, thank you for that. Any other questions regarding the budget? Okay, thank you, Wayne.
Certainly on the screen in front of you, this is staff's approach to the long-term plans for at least 3 of your TIF areas, economic development areas. Certainly looking for any discussion, amendment, changes to what's on the screen here. But starting at the top is getting back to the Zionsville Gateway area. This is a project that we've been working on since June a year ago. And this project ultimately steamrolled forward in the form of the buildings coming down, engineering work related to a study facilitated by Dell Design and Thomas P. Miller and Associates architectural work. Certainly that project, again, pending in front of the town council on December 6th. But this bond issuance would be related to the movement of First Street, extending it southerly to the creek, as well as other pedestrian-related improvements and public improvements in the area. The second listed there is the Holiday Farms Economic Development Area. This is a project that was certainly approved as a EDA in 2019. The primary component, at least on the public side of the conversation, was pedestrian improvements along the 421 corridor. One of the unique things that's happening with Holiday Farms is the project is going so well and it's moving along so quickly, is that its sanitary sewer capacity, which was anticipated to be upsized in a few years. And when I say it's, I mean downstream, related closer to the village, closer to the downtown area. That work would have been undertaken, I would say maybe about 4 years from now. However, with the project advancing so quickly, we're looking for that sewer work to also advance in tandem with that success. And so we don't have the numbers yet, but we're probably in the $3 million ballpark, if you will, for that bond issuance. But we'll be having very detailed conversations here in the future. And 700 East listed there, the bond issuance, which was talked about last month in terms of the John Demery's project at 700 East and Whitestown Parkway. That's the former Pock Farm EDA 700 East. But happy to discuss what's on the screen here.
Thank you Wayne, for that.
Certainly.
And just for clarity, the Zionsville EDA infrastructure bond, that is looking at the gateway recommendation for infrastructure and land designation.
That's
But
correct.
nothing is set in stone in terms of the First Street extension or alignment for that project at this time, correct?
Oh, no, the first thing we would have to launch down is assuming the town council supports the project, is a traffic study, is working on engineering work to facilitate what that alignment would look like and what that right-of-way acquisition would need to help facilitate that project. So there's a number of things that some due diligence that would need to be in place before the larger conversation. But the larger conversation would entail the topic of resetting the TIF. As seen on a prior slide, this TIF ends, the Zionsville EDA a maturity date of May of 2030. And that bond issuance, we would ultimately look to possibly create its own TIF area for the gateway area, and may want to consider how far south that district would run.
Okay, great, thank you.
Certainly.
Next in the agenda would be to go over the impact to the overlapping taxing units. And I think before hitting that, I wanted to go over the pay 21 tax rates that are applicable to each of the allocation areas. I wanted to know, it's important to note that when the schools pass a referendum fund tax rate, the revenues from that tax rate still flow to the schools and not to the TIF. And then each of the TIFs are kind of in different taxing units, are in different taxing districts, and the units within those districts are the school corporation, the library, the county, the town, kind of make up each of those districts. So the impact on the taxing units, I think it's important to know also that development wouldn't occur but for the establishment of the allocation areas. So really establishing the allocation areas brings the new investment into the town and enhances property tax values and generates new jobs. The jobs create new local income tax. And then when the TIF allocation areas expire, all of the net assessed value attributed to the new investment that has come in since the establishment of the TIF will be passed back to those underlying taxing units. And to date, of the last 5 years, $11.1 million have been spent on projects within the allocation areas from revenues that you captured in the TIFs. From here, I'll give it back to Wayne for any highlights in the allocation areas.
Certainly the three items that are on your screen, starting again with the Zionsville EDA and referencing back the Thomas P. Miller and Associates Delve design. You may recall that a pledge of $11,000 was articulated by the RDC to support that professional services contract. I would say around $60,000 has gone into that's the study, the public presentations, the public outreach efforts. Additional dollars certainly found from food and beverage, other resources of the town, and those dollars have included working on studying different areas of the gateway and adjacent to the gateway related to support of a parking amenity that we could as well rely upon as a community. Certainly the middle item there is discussed already is the bond issuance, and certainly perhaps supporting Appaloosa Crossing and the buildings that are going vertical, and the future buildings that will be commercial buildings that will be vertical in the area. And then another highlight, of course, is certainly the support of the Zionsville Community School System resulting from the Creekside EDA, and certainly appreciative of that support. Great, thank you.
Then I'll be happy to take any questions that you might have about the presentation or allocation areas.
Colleen or Jacqueline, do you have any questions in regards to the presentation from Becca?
No, thank you, Sanjay.
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is the schedule of the 2022 RDC meeting dates. These dates were provided to us earlier in the month and they're part of your package. I have no objection to the dates that have been proposed.
Do you need a motion?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay.
Move to
Sorry.
accept the dates?
I'll second.
A motion and a second to adopt the meeting dates for 2022. Wayne, can you do a roll call?
Certainly. Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Mr. Ezra,
Yes.
Ms. Hiddle,
Yes.
Ms. Spillane.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Do you have anyone online that has requested to speak?
None at this time.
Great, thank you. Any other business, Wayne?
I do. I'd have two quick things for the
Okay.
group here.
Great.
First is, as we looking to just continue the discussion a little bit on the microloan process, and we passed out or emailed out information related to the ordinances that were in place in 2011, and then certainly updated in 2013. Certainly be working with the lawyers to update that process and make it a part of the Community Development Corporation's toolbox, if you will. The one component that is of necessity right now, and as last month we talked about how the documents actually speak to the State Bank of Wisdom being that manager, if you will, of those funds. And so uniquely during that time, Luke Fennessy, who was a part of the Redevelopment Commission, his name is embedded, if you will, within the documents. And so the State Bank is looking for the minutes to reflect that the Redevelopment Commission would support removing Mr. Fennessy's name from the Zionsville Redevelopment Commission bank account held at the State Bank of Wisdom, and then substituting in our CFO, Tammy Havard, and also Cindy Poor as signatories on that account controlled by the town of Zionsville, for the town of Zionsville.
Do we need to do that via ordinance at town council or through the RDC?
My belief is we just need to read that into the minutes, and certainly if that action is supported by the redevelopment commission, we can simply move that ball forward and make that change to remove Mr. Fennessy's name from the account, updated with more accurate information that we have today, and take care of that.
Okay. Is there, to avoid having to make revisions in the future, can we designate in general the CFO and the president of the CDC as authorized signatories on this? Because that document will then have to be changed on an annual or on a regular basis as people change within their positions.
Well, certainly, and Tammy, I don't know if you have comment on that. Both of the names that are mentioned here are town of Zionsville employees. So Cindy Poor is also a member of the staff in the Department of Finance and Records. And so as this account is TIF funds, I do not believe internal controls would look to have a separate 501c3 signatory on this account.
Okay.
So I don't know, Tammy, or if you're happen to still be
Yes.
on.
Yes. So, yes, my understanding is that once the account is in the town's name, then the town would be able to change and update as it goes along. But the issue is right now it is not in anyone in the town's name.
All right, do we need to take a motion?
Certainly, let's go ahead and for the record, we can look for that documentation.
So I'm sorry, do we need to put forward a motion to change the names? Is that what we need to do?
I would say just
Yes.
make a motion to remove Mr. Fennessy's name from the documents held at the bank, and for town employee names to be added, which include Tammy Havard and Cindy Poor. Tammy Havard and Cindy Poor.
I will move that we move forward with that motion as Wayne has just put forward.
Second.
There, motion and a second. Any discussion? Wayne, can we do a roll call?
Certainly. Ms. Spillane,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Mr. Ezra,
Yes.
Ms. Hope.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
And the other thing I wanted to bring to your attention, and I do apologize, I did not share this information in advance with Ms. Hill or Ms. Spillane, is that in Creekside Corporate Park, we have an unplanned expense of about $864 related to an irrigation repair. And this is a little bit timely because we're going into the winter season, and the Community Development Corporation needs to get this taken care of. As this group recalls, the CDC received around $11,000 in support funding from this group to fund 2021 expenses. And what I'm looking to document this evening, certainly bring this to your attention, not bringing to your attention that the CDC is asking for money per se, just given this late timing and inability to assemble and ask, is the idea that the CDC would utilize the funding that was awarded to them originally earlier this year, specific to tree replacement, and use this same funding as their source to make this repair to the irrigation system. And my main idea here is to just bring this change, if you will, to your attention. Just that the idea is to again use previously awarded funding, but in a different manner.
So it's part of the 11,000, but it's just allocated differently. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly it.
Okay, thanks, Wayne.
Certainly.
Thank you.
All right, and certainly the CDC appreciates your support with this timely issue.
Sure. And they're moving forward with this.
Yes, we'll move
Okay.
forward tonight.
Okay, great. Okay. Anything else for the members of the RDC? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Meeting adjourned.
All right, thank you.
You're out.